Good evening. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very, very excited to host Queen Quet as she shares her passion, her energy, her historical context with us as we explore the Gullah Geechee culture. For those of you who were able to join early, you already know we are in for a treat simply by your engagement so far. I love the fact that you've had the engagement with those who have jumped on the call. And I know it's going to be a great conversation this evening. My name is Ebony Thomas, and as most of you guys know, I'm the chair for the African American Network. One of the things that we've been able to do over the past year is to not only engage with more of our AAN regional chapters, but also partner with more of our AAN regional chapters to host events like this one, and that's what we're doing tonight. So tonight we are actually partnering with our Charleston DEI team. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our Imee from our Charleston team to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. And again, I think we're in for a treat. So thank you, Imee, over to you.
Thank you, Ebony. So yes, I am the chair of the Charleston DEI committee, and we are pretty new. This is our second virtual event and actually our first live event. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And thank you, Ebony, for supporting us to get this event going. So tonight we have Queen Quet, who is the chiefess of the Gullah Geechee Nation. And she is going to speak about the Gullah Geechee culture here in Charleston. She is vetted with the U.S. White House as an expert commissioner in the Department of Interior. She's also a published author, a computer scientist, a lecturer, mathematician, historian, columnist, preservationist, environmental justice advocate, and film consultant, and the archivist. Thank you so much, Queen Quet, for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Hunter children. We're so glad that Hunter children to deal with we and thing like that. A evening like this year, we're together. And sometime in the evening, Hunter done did it. Our doors are walked there clean the dust. All right, yeti son and children. Let's start up this year thing like this year. Hold on. Just a little while longer, hold on. Just a little while longer, hold on. Just a little while longer, everything gonna be all right. On a half a hold on, just a little while longer, pray on. Just a little while longer, pray on. Just a little while longer, everything gonna be all right. On a chill on everything gonna be all right. In the morning, everything gonna be all right. A plenty time when people been a kind, they yell we, that they yawner, they brush out and things like that. I crack we teach so. Red of us, then yell we. Got to sing the grind with this show. What I said, I can't stand tall. For him. What a grind when you wanna. Now, try to sneak in the bush. For Yeti, what the hell else the ancestors them to do. I'm sure. See, I'm the grind wrong at the suckers. Look on that thing. What when the spirit to hit them? What going on? Now see this show. Especially if they're in the buck of them. When that stuff will come in, and yet we don't crack with teeth so. They say we will crack in and all that kind of thing like that. But that ain't true. God make us so that we crack with teeth like this show. Why we have to be cracky? The hunter not cracky tall. The hunter will say je parle français. The hunter not yet it and say, they're cracky tall. They say, que pasa? Then I say, or try that thing with. Oh, but all this your time. They been a kind in. The only one more behind. No overstanding tall. You see, when I crack with people beyond now, as we've been there on need too long, time for we over something now. And so now this year day, or plenty people still a kind in. Or some that look for we soul like a this year, like them dear fun, safari and thing like that. I say, oh yeah, with them people, but not all you know, but we're not sure. And they say, oh, what kind of crazy people is this? What that kind of me and I can't see we? Oh, they need a 2 or 3 of these, yeah? We did it. They can't see. But then they study about that thing. And say, oh, Yankee out there coming in from Jacksonville, North Carolina, down Jacksonville, Florida. Or if they're coming from these Sea Island, they should have yet it this year. But instead of that, or when they get to something chilling and thing like that, and say, well, how do you know over where then Gullah Geechee people today? They said, They said, how do you yet it, Gullah? Said, oh, they ain't, yeah. You have to go down the road. Go down the road, where? They said, well, go to Charleston. Then you get there. And the other rest of children in Charleston say, oh, no. Go on Beaufort. Then on go on Beaufort. And you get there. You ask them again. Then children said, no, go on across there to the island. And they said, to the island. They were me and this island where I did from. Said, tell the island. South Carolina. In the Gullah Geechee Nation. Well, Hona can still come here. And yet we put up in you, a crack we teach so. And you can hear us speaking like this as well. Because of all the decades that we've been here, the centuries that we've been here, and the various encounters we've had with different people, that when they yet we the crack we teach and we mother tongue like this, they didn't get what we were saying at all. Had no idea that another language existed beyond the language they spoke. And many times the people who were coming in to our islands saying that they really didn't grasp what we were saying, but instead of just asking us, did we speak another language? They went away saying that either we were ignorant or we were backward, not that we were brilliant. But now, people who come to the Gullah Geechee Nation, which exists from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida, hope that they get an opportunity. For actually, yeah, the people are cracking teeth, so and things like that. But they you know morning time. They would love to hear people actually speaking our language amongst themselves, morning, evening, day, night. But more often not, they'll come in and they hear people speaking this way. Because for generations, we had the people who were coming in who were of Anglo descent that said that was backward, that's ignorant, you don't do that. You should speak like this. But why? Our language comes from an African tree of languages. It doesn't come from the Germanic tree of languages like English does. And darling, the Queen in England doesn't believe you speak English in the US anyway, dear. It's poppycock to her that you speak English. And so it's amazing to me as I've traveled the world, learned other languages, heard other people speak, seen other people engage. They have no problem with other communities speaking their language. But somehow when they got to our communities, our family compounds, into our schoolhouses, they said that this was ignorant to be bilingual, and in many cases, trilingual. The point was, not everybody let on that they could code switch. And more often not today, you find a lot of people who would send people on a wild goose chase looking for these mythological to many, legendary Gullah Geechee. And many times the person sending you away is a Gullah Geechee standing right in front of you. And you say, well, why would they do that? Because once they figured out that if they spoke the language in front of others who didn't speak it, they either got one extreme or the other. They got those who still believe that, oh, these people don't have the ability to communicate in English. Or you got the ones who tried to record them speaking so that they could take it somewhere else and do something with it that nobody had any idea of what they were doing. So once again, it was like taking again us from our homeland, stripping us of something, and then using it for their benefit with no benefit to our community, no indication of our humanity, by simply doing what the elders taught us. Just having a little manners would have made all the difference in the world. To say, is it all right if I record you? Is it all right if I take your picture? So that we could say yes or no. So nowadays, as much as the world now is writing about Gullah Geechee culture and writing about our traditions and heritage and culture, it's not all good. As some people like to say, it's all good. It's not all good. Because many times what they're writing comes from older writings written about us, not by us. That doesn't give the full spectrum of, as we say, who we be down here and things like that. That our ancestors didn't come from one part of Africa. Our ancestors were Igbo, Mandinka, Malinke, Yoruba, Gullah, Geechee, Mendi, Temni, Efik, Ibibio, Mendi, the Twi they speak, the Vai, the Gualas had their own, the Creole is another language there, that all these languages, all the different dialects of these linguistic communities combined along with their spiritual practices, along with their food ways, along with their traditions, and that of the Yamasee, the Adisto, the Cree, that were here in what's called the Low Country and the Sea Islands, going from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. The Gullah Geechee Nation encompasses all those sea islands and 30 to 35 miles inland to a river called the St. Johns River. So we know many times when people come down, it's confusing. You don't know whether everybody you see is Gullah Geechee or not, if you don't know what Gullah Geechee is. And the only indicator some people have is when they hear the reader say this, young girl going out here, yeah, who is your son? What in? What in? And I did that for the honor to grab and thing like that. Go on, your honor. And look, y'all. And then people go, what was that? You know, and somebody local say, oh, they're Gullah. Oh, they're Gullah Geechee. Okay, they're Gullah Geechee. What does that mean? Well, that actually means these are citizens of their own nation who are descendants of Africans who were actually kidnapped. They were captured, kidnapped, and brought across the Middle Passage. This Atlantic that you see behind me is not for us a place of recreation that everybody pours into, but it is actually a place of spiritual nourishment that pours into us, that feeds us, that feeds our souls, and reconnects us with our family across the other side in the motherland. And our culture is inextricably tied to this soil because the literal blood, sweat, and tears of those Africans and the indigenous ancestors is literally in this sea island and, as they call it, low country soil. So we are souls of this soil. And as I always say to people, when you come and you say, well, I want to buy a piece of your land, it feels like you're saying you want to buy a piece of our family, because the land is our family and the waterways are our bloodline. So it's critical to us that in this age of people trying to rush in and get to the coast, that they realize that thing that I mentioned a little while ago, having some manners, having some respect. And one of our Gullah Geechee proverbs says, the water to bring we, the water going to take we back. But another says, manners going to take on where money can't. And now people are recognizing some of our mores and utilizing some of our idioms and not realizing this ain't the first time that folks who consider themselves to be American have done that. A lot of people, your cameras are off because I can't see you if you raise your hand physically, but raise your hand with the feature. If you've ever eaten okra in your life, raise your hand. Have you ever nampun goobers? Ever ate goobers in your life? Yes. So now here it is that okra and goober, these are actually Gullah Geechee words. These are African words that have become a part of the everyday language of people in America. But did they ever give credit to the Africans for bringing it in? No. Just like they don't give credit to our ancestors for actually not just laying the cornerstone of America, but being the cornerstone of America. Because even the folks that many of whom are here with me tonight are seated right there where my ancestors were first brought into North America. They're seated in what's now called Charleston, South Carolina, which became the #1 enslavement auction block in all of North America during the transatlantic slave trade. #2 was New York, Wall Street, and the East River. To this moment, Charleston and Wall Street are still tied together. And here it is that people don't often examine the complexities of how people are interconnected, and they don't examine the complexity of life on islands and how these sea islands are still connected through our bloodline, this waterway. How this was the mechanism by which we travel one to another. And it's that same mechanism, that water that bring we, that got my ancestors here. First at Sullivan's Island, where 40% of all Africans enslaved in North America came through. Then they were bound there in what they call pest houses or pestilence houses, just north of the peninsula that we now call Charleston, that was deemed Charlestown. Just like it got renamed, hey, all of where we are, where I am tonight, got renamed. Carolina, this was Chicora before the British came and claimed it as their space, as their new world. But it wasn't a new world to the indigenous people that are also part of my family's ancestry that was already here. It wasn't a new world, and that's why the Africans prior to the British Lords Proprietors coming in and settling Charlestown, those that landed at Santa Elena, those that navigated the Spaniards and made their way to an area of the Petey River region, found out that very quickly, those Africans, those aboard, could get off and then get in with the indigenous that were here. And many that did this over the generations became known by a whole nother name, Seminole. So when you hear the Black Seminole, the Afro Seminole, whether they be in Florida or they're in Texas, Oklahoma, or in Mexico, or even hear the word Muskogee when you go to Mexico, this is all part of the Gullah Geechee diaspora. And if you go to Bermuda or you go down to Trinidad, you have people that are even called American there. Again, part of the Gullah Geechee diaspora. So not only did the water bring us in, but many times the water is what took us out to other places to navigate. And those who went by water or stayed on land didn't all remain on plantations on sea islands. Many of them became that warrior class people, that unconquerable group. Hence why they called them Seminole, wild or exiled from Cimarron, because they could never defeat them. Over 40 years, the Gullah Wars were fought for freedom. And now, from the 1500s to the 1600s, with these waves of Africans coming in and joining with indigenous people, and then the indigenous almost blending in to who is now called the Gullah Geechee thereafter. We've been called these many different names, but yet people don't even know the meaning and realize that the word Gullah means people blessed by God. So that's why today, when we stand as a nation of people and you see us hold up our flag, you see that it says we be Gullah Geechee anointed people, because we know it is God's anointing that kept our people alive through the transatlantic slave trade era. through the various wars they've had to fight, seeking their liberty, seeking their freedom. And in 1999, I went before the United Nations because our freedom still had not come. And I sat down before that body for our human rights. And from that day to this, I've continued to fight for the human rights of Gullah Geechees. In July of 2000, I was installed at Sullivan's Island and became both a queen mother, a spiritual leader, and a chiefess and spokesperson for Gullah Geechee people. This is the first time this ever happened in world history. Gullah Geechee people came together from the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida to stand on our human right to self-determination and to declare ourselves officially a nation. The interesting thing about it is, as I continued to do research as a historian, I found quotes that had been written about our ancestors way before any of us were born that actually read, "'Twere a nation in a nation." So the very people who had kidnapped our African ancestors, tried to exploit and also put into bondage our indigenous ancestors, recognized our nationhood back then. But our collective consciousness hadn't come back to the surface until 1999, when that one-year election process started to then make sure that as of 2000, we would stand by our own rights this time at Sullivan's Island and speak to the world. We spoke this way, and we throw them down like a dish and thing like that, because this year we time for crack we did it. The way we God bless we for doing. And so no one ever again was going to be able to tell us we were backward, we were ignorant, that we should throw away our culture, that we shouldn't want to keep our, as they call it, Africanisms, that we shouldn't want to hold on to our sacred land from which this culture grew. Because Gullah Geechee culture is indigenous to the Sea Islands. It grew by all of these cultural communities coming together and uniting and creating what is represented by what's in the center of our flag. The bodies intertwined of those Igbo, Mandinka, Malinke, Yoruba, Gullah, Geechee, Yamasee, Kasavu, and then rooted in this soil that now we see eroding because of sea level rise. We see being impacted by overbuilding. We see it being impacted by masses of people coming to the coast for tourism, but not knowing the value of living in balance with the land, when all they had to do was ask us. As we always say, we the Binya, we Naguina, we're tall. So even though in the Gullah Geechee Nation, we have 5 seasons of the year, hurricane season being one of them, that we are in now, somehow, before the Weather Channel, before the apps, before all these things could tell you something's on the way, our ancestors survived. Our ancestors thrived. In spite of people whipping them, beating them, in spite of people whipping my classmates and others because they simply spoke their mother tongue, we survived. We've thrived. But now the battle continues for us to keep our environment, which is a sacred space, for future generations, not just because of the climate changing, but because of the climate of people changing, where people are still exploitive and extractive. And they will take that image, they will take your voice on a device with no regard to your humanity, with no regard for the fact that in our culture, to record, it's like you're taking a part of our soul and you're capturing it, with no regard for what is done on the land, and not realizing that what we do to Mother Earth, we do to ourselves. So if we nurture Mother Earth, she'll continue to nurture us. A bunch of y'all raised your hand when I asked, who is eating okra and who is eating gumbo, I'm gonna ask you this. How many of y'all eat seafood? Where's your hand? I know ain't nobody up in there. Oh, okay. Now I see them hands waving. Now y'all wave. See, I ain't get a big wave on the okra. I see y'all doing praise waves now. Like hallelujah, yes, on the seafood. I see you. So can you imagine that? Imagine eating it with a good old pot of that gumbo to cook up and things like that. And yet about okra, they call that thing gumbo. So when you throw me where they got meals and now that okra there, that gumbo and things like that. Imagine that you done going out Jonah with your cast net and then get that swamp and bring them in and I had that thing and I peel them and things like that and throw them in there. Then imagine that somebody come along and throw a little bit of corn there inside. They just get out the field just now. Somebody just cut the okra and throw that in there too. And then you got that rice and thing, that Big Daddy Mama there. Oh, they done make that part of that rice and thing. And they done put that bed of rice there upon that plate. And then they pour that whole gumbo across that thing. But anytime you not want no plate tall, you want one bowl, because you make sure, say, oh, that good sauce that did it. Stay right, Jonah. Imagine they done back that cornbread and thing like that. Then you take that piece of that cornbread and then you wipe around the thing. And I drop nothing tall. And I waste none tall. But this year, that we be still in yam punting. But if we not take care of the water, we not take care of the land, ain't going to be no place for we stand, rid of us, for me yam punting tall. So if we don't protect the water, we don't protect the land of this area, we then build in food insecurity. We have no way to literally sustain ourselves. So this is now about sustaining a cultural community that has the traditional knowledge to sustain who we be and to help the world understand ecology and living in balance with the environment so that we all can eat, so that when there is that okra cut from the field, there's enough that it can go around. And when we pick those tomatoes, you got enough that there's enough that it can go around. That when we go out there to cast the net for the shrimp, you don't have to go way out in no deep water with no trawler. You can still row out the bateau boat and carry the family and cast one good time and bring the shrimp in. There's a time we didn't even need a boat at all. You could go to the landing and do this and the shrimp would come on up and you could pick them up. We go crabbing. You didn't have to go out and then drop what they call crab pots or things, traps. We didn't need all that. You could go and walk and you could bring them in. But now, because folks didn't, yet we tall, didn't hear us. They didn't know what we meant when we told them you got to live in balance. You got to leave something for the next generation. But we knew this because of collective consciousness. We knew that when our elders told us, go study on yourself, they wanted you to sit and meditate and connect with the earth itself, with God. They spoke to you. And then you might even hear back generations through those ancestors who would give you the knowledge of where to go, when to go, where not to go, where to build, where not to build, so that you could still be here generations later. I'm fortunate and blessed to be speaking to you from a family compound that my ancestors had been enslaved on, but purchased during big shooting thing going on, when the U.S. Civil War was happening in 1862, before the Emancipation Proclamation, before the Civil War ended. They became landowners. They went from being chattel, meaning property, to owning the property they had been enslaved on both sides of my family. So that's why it's so important to me to know and to feel and to tell you that I know for sure this land is our family. These waterways are our bloodline. So we have to now keep everything in balance, including what we show other people, what you hear, so that it's not exploited, it's not extracted from, it's not taken out, but that there's something left for the next generation, like our ancestors left this and gave us the power to be able to code switch so that others could get overstanding. As we've been under too long, it's time for us to be over something. And so that they could know we were never backward. We were never ignorant. If anything, we were brilliantly blessed by God to be who we be. And I so glad that God make we Gullah Geechee. And I'm so glad for joining all the 100 children this evening. And that you can yeti we, a crack we teeth like a dish, but that I can also speak your language. And I pray more than the words that I speak, that our power and our energy touches each other's souls the way my ancestors' souls touch me when I touch the soil. And so at some point, I pray that you'll be here on this coast with us, where we're all safely together, gathered in the circle, where we can hold hands, where we can pour libation in honor of them. And then we can get that circle going, shout like we would do in the evening time. For sure, because it's still shouting time that we still dear after all of what become against we, but try break we from who we be. Oh, but I did tell on a chillin' though, who God bless, no man or monkey cost. So we thank God for blessing we and make we who we be, Gullah Geechee, anointed people. So I thank you, Booz Allen, for inviting me. And of course, when I first saw the name on paper, I wanted to make sure that someone was not playing a prank when I saw the word booze, without the E, but nonetheless booze. So I made sure to go and look into what is this? What is Booz Allen? And what I thought was critical that I want to leave in your thoughts tonight was that the founder back in 1914 said that he wanted to focus on people, not products. And I noticed that when you talk about yourselves, you write about yourselves, you say you start with character and fear not the future. And those two things stood out for me because for the 4 decades that I've been doing the work to fight to make sure the world recognized that my cultural community existed so that they would help us remain in existence, not have us become extinct and then be museumized by others and interpreted by others. I was the person who many people either loved or hated, because I was going to stand my ground on being proudly Gullah Geechee, being proudly a Black person who felt that we had a right to tell our story, whether it was painful or not. We had the right to tell our story, and we have the right to remain on our land and to be the ones telling our story, not just having it used as a tool for somebody else's economic empowerment. And my thing has always been, it's about the people. And the only way I could continue to speak that, even with death threats and everything else, was because I didn't fear the future. And so I'm so proud of this group to say, well, no, we don't have a particular theme we want you to talk about. We just want all of our folks at Booz Allen to know that the Gullah Geechee Nation exists. We want them to know that your cultural community exists. We want them to know about the legacy of your people. And so now that you know, it's up to you to do something with that. And our ancestors and elders always taught us that know where Hona de from, Hona know where Hona de Guine. So for all the people of African indigenous descent here tonight, you got the San Kofa. Go back and fetch it. Go back and get that which was behind us, that our elders and our ancestors left as our legacy. Get the good things and bring it forward into the future without any fear. And always keep the people first, because as you take care of the people, God's gonna take care of you. And so I just wanted to share that because I thought it was critical that those two things I took personally when I read them, because it's always been about character for me. And that holds to that proverb, man is going to take on when money can't. I've been to all 50 states. I was about to complete 3 continents when Rona came along by the business, and she need to go by the business now. All right. So I can finish up the journey. But I hope that along the way, I get an opportunity to be where you are, and that at some point you get to come here and celebrate on our shores with us, and that we continue to stay healthy and safe and blessed. So thank you for having me here this evening, Sister Ebony or Imee.
Queen Quet, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk with us this evening. And this was incredible, and was not expecting to be so interactive and engaging with everyone. And it was really awesome. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending.